morning, Taste Buds. I'm Chef Michelle Bernstein. If this vegetable confuses you and you don't know what to do with it, you're in the right place. Stay where you are for some of my best leek recipes today on SoFlo Taste. How fun is that? Hi there and welcome to SoFlo Taste. I'm Chef Michelle Bernstein here in the Goya kitchen at JA World in Coconut Creek. Do you know what to do with a leek? I mean, sure, you may be putting them in a soup you make, but did you actually know that these flavors-filled stocks can be much more? So I thought it would be fun to show you some recipes replacing the leek in the spotlight. So let's get cooking. So first of all, you really have to clean leeks properly because there's a lot of dirt inside the leeks. You know, it does grow in the ground and it is part of the onion family, but it's a lot softer and more delicate to the palate. There's a couple ways to clean them. One is to cut them in half. First, rinse them in water and then soak them in water. But if you're cooking them whole, like I'm doing for my first recipe, you really want to soak them for quite a while. I would actually put them in water in your refrigerator overnight to make sure that they're really, really clean. The first recipe, I'm going to poach leeks and I'm doing leek vinaigrette. The vinaigrette is not leeks, but that's what they call it. Or you could put it leek with vinaigrette. So the first thing you have to do is poach a leek. I like to wrap them in little bundles like so. Now, after the leeks are washed really well, you see this little top part, which I call the little hairs of the leek. You want to just cut them just barely, because you need the top of this to keep the whole leek together. Then the darker part of the leek is something that's usually used in stock, chicken stock, really any kind of stock that you might make is what we use the darker part of the leaf for. And then you make bundles. So these perfect little bundles, you just tie them together with string. I like to wet the top of the string to make sure that if you do have a gas range like this is, when you put the string, you allow the leeks to go into the boiling water, and this is salted water. And I leave the string hanging on the outside of the pot so that I can easily lift it up once they're cooked. Do it again, get the strings wet, and then you just hang them over like so. I always like to get them wet so they don't burn off. All right, so you let that go and let that cook for a good 15 minutes until they're really, really soft. And you can test them with a knife, but they'll also start kind of opening up a little bit, and you'll see that they're totally cooked through when they become a little more transparent. Okay, once the leeks are finished cooking, remember that string? You're going to go ahead and lift it carefully by the string, and then to shock them, to stop the cooking process, even though I like them a little bit warm, we're going to let these cool to room temperature before taking them out and drying them off in a towel. All right, so here you have the cooked leek, which you can see that they are fully cooked. And these are a little touch warmer than room temperature, and that's how I love serving leek vinaigrette. You can also serve it cold, which is traditionally how it's served, but I happen to love a warm leek. To me, it just melts in your mouth that way. Let's already put it on the platter that we're going to serve it on, and you're going to cut the string. That, you see, I burnt the tip because I forgot to get it wet. We're going to cut the string off. Most people usually eat one leek as a starter. You can serve me about 5 of them because I love them. And you can serve them whole, or you can cut them in half, like so. And I'm going to put the flat side up because it's going to hold the vinaigrette beautifully. And one more piece. All right. So let's start on all the crunchy bits and the vinaigrette. I've got hazelnuts that have been roasted in the oven, and the reason why they're in this bag is so that I can crush them without having to use a knife and getting them all over the place. Use a rolling pin. Whoopsie, there's a hole in mine. Use a rolling pin, or you can use a little saute pan, but all you have to do is just delicately beat it up, and then you'll have crushed nuts. All right, so we're going to use this for the topping, and let's set this aside. And hazelnuts are really the more traditional nut that you would use in leek vinaigrette. If you don't like or are allergic to hazelnuts, you can use any nut or seed if you like, but you really want some crunchy bits going on. Let's start the vinaigrette. So I have some very tiny minced shallots, and this is going to take 2 different mustards. Dijon mustard, and don't go too crazy, don't use too much, because it's going to take over the flavor, and grainy mustard. So we've got the 2 mustards, we've got the shallots. We need to season this really well with salt and pepper. Remember, this doesn't really have anything. It's just the poached leek and a little bit of salt in that water. We're going to add some herbs. So I have some tarragon here, which we're going to chop nice and fine. And you can really use whatever herbs you like. I mean, there are some herbs that make me melt that I just adore, and that I use as a bit of my crutch because I love them so much. So tarragon is definitely one of them. Thyme is delicious and so good in mustard vinaigrettes. So a few of those leaves to go in there. And then let's go ahead and add our vinegar. You never add oil first because we're looking for a bit of an emulsification using the mustard to emulsify. So I'm going to add my favorite sherry vinegar to this. And I love sherry vinegar. I use it on a lot of different things. But if it's not your favorite, and if you don't have it at home, then you can use any vinegar you like because it will really be delicious with pretty much anything. Let's go ahead and open up my everyday olive oil because I have fancier olive oil and I have everyday olive oil. So for vinaigrettes, I try to use the everyday one. And the mustard will adhere to the oil and allow this to thicken just a little bit. Lovely. As it's starting to do now, I can see the sides of the bowl. The vinaigrette is starting to get a little bit thick, and that's what I'm looking for. The last thing I'm going to do is just slice up some chives. Nice and thin. I love chives, and I feel like we just don't use them enough. So these are just gorgeous chives. They're not garlic chives, they're just traditional chives. And you can usually find them in the supermarkets, but they're just so lovely. And they just go great on top of any kind of food, your favorite foods. And let's finish this all up. Take this lovely, you see how it looks kind of creamy? How it's somewhat emulsified because of the mustard and the oil? It's just gorgeous. And then you have those little bits of the grain in the mustard, and that'll go right over the leek. Oh, this makes me so happy. It's so hard to find this dish, so I decided I just have to always make it on my own. Chives right on top. These crunchy hazelnuts. Let's finish it off with a little bit of sea salt, the crunchy one, and some really fancy oil right over the top. And there you have it. Leek vinaigrette. I cannot wait. Come right back.
There's still more from the Goya Kitchen at J.A. World and Michelle.
SoFlo Home Project is next, right here on Local 10.
Welcome back to SoFlo Taste. I'm here at the wonderful J.A. World in Coconut Creek, a learning place committed to the education of our children through an interactive learning environment which teaches students financial literacy and much more. Visit jasouthflorida.org for more information or call 954-979-7100. They make us feel so welcome. Now back to the food. All right, everybody. My next dish is braised leeks. Today we're going to serve it with a roast chicken. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's jump right into the leek. So we're going to start with olive oil and butter. This process does take a little bit of time, so I have one already started over here, which, you know what? Let me just tell you so I can show you from beginning to end. I'll show you how I got here, but right now I'm going to add the chicken stock to this, which can be vegetable stock if you're vegetarian, and I'm just going to cover it and let it go. All right, so how did I get there? Starting with butter and oil. We're going to put the leeks cut side down into the fat. Now I'm going to cheat just a little bit and add a little bit of sugar, just a little sprinkling of sugar, not only for the caramelization, but for the balance of flavors, because we're going to add some wine to this to reduce. I'm adding 1 bay leaf, 1 sprig of rosemary, and a sprig of thyme to the pan. And we want to let this really just caramelize. The only thing left we're going to add is the wine, which needs to be completely reduced down. And then we're going to add the chicken stock like I did there. But let me show you the process of this. I have, of course, on the SoFlo Show's site, a great recipe for chicken, and I love roast chicken. There's lots of ways to do it. But this was a gorgeous whole chicken. And I got that chicken at Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market. Make sure you visit my friends because they are located at the corner of 441 and Sterling. Go to delawarechicken.com or call them at 954-983-6831. Take it all in. Go there. They are such wonderful people. They're so helpful. Of course, they have gorgeous chicken. It's in their name, but they have so much more. So much great fish and shellfish and meats and all kinds of stuff. But today, here's my roast chicken. Just a beautiful, simple whole bird. And they'll tell you, by the way, which chicken you should buy to roast or to poach or to make stock and, you know, everything. They're just so great over there. But this is just heavily seasoned chicken. I love to leave chicken uncovered in my fridge overnight so that it gets really dry, so that once you roast it, it gets a really crispy crust. There's nothing like that in the world. Season it on the inside of the chicken as well as the outside of the chicken with just salt and pepper, but you won't believe how many people forget to season the inside of the bird, which after roasting makes it delicious inside and out. All right, once these caramelize on the cut size, I flip it over and caramelize it on the other side. And I take a pan, a small pan, and I just flatten it. Now, this is a very restaurant-y thing to do, but to make them beautifully flat and presentable, this is what I do. And these are almost there. You can serve this beautiful dish on its own with a gorgeous roast chicken like today, or of course underneath some fillets of fish is just perfect. Leeks and fish go so well together. Crumbled up crab meat on top of this would be beautiful. A steak dish, anything, everything goes with leek. It's like an onion, right? It's in the onion family, so it's like an onion, and it's just delicious, but it's a little glazier and more delicious even so. Once you get a little caramelization on that side, I'm going to flip it back over because we are going to finish cooking it on the cut side down. So go ahead and add some white wine, nice dry white wine, not too fruity. I'm going to go ahead and put my little saute pan down there again, so that it really flattens up. So these are almost fully cooked. They're beautifully tender. And the best part about this is that the glaze that is being made right now with all of the drippings from the pan and the sweetness and the tartness from the wine, and it's all, you see these gorgeous big bubbles that are producing. This is going to make a beautiful glaze for the leek. So I'm just going to add the tiniest dot of butter. I'm going to flip the leeks over finally for the last time. Ah, this is gorgeous. So I just love to serve them in halves like this. I think it just makes such a beautiful, dramatic presentation, and it's just so delicious. They're so meaty and so yummy. I love to serve it with the herb, but it's up to you. And then whatever happens to be left in the pan as far as juices and glaze go, just pour it right over that leek. And it serves as a lovely sauce for the chicken as well. You need to try and make this. Come right back for another of my leek recipes. And if you need a recipe from a previous show, just remember all my recipes are always available on the SoFlo Show's webpage. Just scan this quick response code. It'll take you to the SoFlo Show's page. Come right back because I've got more. SoFlo Taste will return right after this. Welcome back to SoFlo Taste and my show to welcome the new season called Spring A Leek. All right, so obviously I'm going to make you a leek and potato soup. I mean, I couldn't leave without that. And there's a few different ways of making leek and potato soup, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite ones. So we're going to start out with some butter. Oh, and by the way, you can serve this cold or hot. It's really up to you. So we're just going to start out with the leeks. This is a whole bunch of leeks. Again, this is just the whites and the light green. We don't want any color, so I'm going to lower the heat a little bit. And you're going to go ahead and cook these leeks in the butter until they just start to soften. For the potato, I like to use russet potatoes. It has the most amount of starch, which is really why you use the potato in this soup as a natural thickener, so that you don't have to add any thickeners to it. All right, so once the leeks have started to soften, go ahead and obviously these are rinsed, peeled russet potatoes, cut up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add 1 bay leaf, a little bit of white pepper, which I ground myself, a pinch of salt, and then finally chicken stock. Now this can easily be a vegan dish by adding olive oil to begin and vegetable stock to end, but I love the chicken stock because to me it gives it a more kind of rounded flavor. This is 4 cups. I think I'm just going to add maybe a half cup more. It doesn't need much more than that. There we go. We're just going to let that cook while I wanted to show you something really fun. I remember back in the early 90s, there was a great restaurant in South Beach. I don't know if any of you remember the Strand, the original Strand. Chef served a dish there. I think it was shrimp, but it had fried leeks on the top, and it was like, I think he called them frizzled leeks. I'll never forget the dish as long as I live, mainly because of the leeks, and I think a lot of you didn't even realize that it was leeks. So we're going to make frizzled leeks. This is just a very fine julienne of more of the whiter part of the leek, but it does have a little bit of the light green as well. Hot oil at about 350 degrees. You don't need cornstarch, you don't need flour, you pretty much don't need anything. So I was just testing to make sure it was nice and hot. So these fried leeks can go beautifully on your leek soup, but they're also kind of fun for the kids to top all kinds of stuff with. And I just thought it would be kind of cool to show you how many versatile things you can do with the leek. All right, so while I'm waiting on these to just turn golden brown, and of course I always have a little paper towel right here to put it onto, let me tell you how I finished this soup. Once the potatoes are beautifully tender, you're going to go ahead and put the whole soup into a blender. While it's blending, I love to add a little sour cream and heavy cream. Very little though. You see how little this is. Just like a big old tablespoon of sour cream and some heavy cream to the soup to make it a little bit more luxurious. I think it makes the soup even more rich and yummy. Oh, our leeks are ready. Okay, so let's pull these out of here. This is just some vegetable oil, by the way, nothing special. And I always used to call this my leek haystack because it looks a little bit like hay. So you go ahead and season this like so, and look how fun this is. This is a great topper for anything and so easy to make. All right, when you come back, we're gonna bring back that soup because it's chilling, because I'm gonna serve mine cold today, and wait till I show you what I brought to top it with. Come right back, you don't wanna miss it. I'll finish this recipe right after this. Welcome back to SoFlo Taste, and I wanted to show you how beautiful the leek and potato soup is. So this one is chilled. So there's a number of things you can do to have a little bit of fun on the top. So I've got some chives, which I will just slice in any old way, which we can sprinkle over the top. Of course, you can have a little more fun and add these gorgeous leeks, like so. And you can have the most fun by adding some of your favorite caviar or salmon roe or whatever it is that you might have around your home. But it goes really well with potato soup. If you were to do the caviar, I would absolutely suggest a little bit of lemon zest over the top. Or you can pretend that your crunchy salt is caviar to add something salty. There you have it. Thanks for coming along with me today. I told you the leek is more than meets the eye and the taste buds. I hope you'll try one of my leek recipes, or 2 or 3, and that you'll work with the leek into your own recipes. Next week, I'm welcoming good old spring to SoFlo. I'll have recipes that also welcome the harvest that spring brings. Help me welcome the rebirth of the land and the rebirth of some of my best recipes of spring. So join me. Now let's check in with my friend and your friend, Elena Capra, host of SoFlo Home Project. Hey Elena, what are you doing today on SoFlo Home Project?
Hi, Michelle. Today we look at ways to maximize our home square footage. Coming up on SoFlo Home Project, we share with you creative, multi-purpose design solutions that will help bring new life to your space.
So taste buds, thanks for spending this half hour with me, and I invite you to spend another half hour with Elena on SoFlo Home Project next. I'll see y'all next week. Goodbye, and good taste. Bring a leek.